I'm Emily Rooney. Welcome to Beat the Press. Our topics. John Henry has been seen and heard at the Boston Globe, but what about the Worcester Telegram and Gazette? A Washington Post columnist takes heat over two recent pieces some feel are racist. And coming to your TV screen soon, drone journalism. That plus our panel rants and raves of the week. Joining me are Dan Kennedy of Northeastern University, WGBH's Callie Crossley, Josh Benton of the Needham Journalism Lab, and Tom Fiedler of Boston University. First, even before the sale was final, Red Sox owner John Henry paid a visit to the Boston Globe, and he's reportedly been back several times since. But he has yet to make a visit to the Worcester Telegram and Gazette, which he also now owns, prompting some anxiety in the heart of the Commonwealth. This was a coy and smiling John Henry in August, right after the New York Times announced it was accepting his bid to buy the Boston Globe. He and wife Linda Pizzuti made a surprise visit to the newsroom.
Any reaction to what you saw?
A little early.
But now the Worcester Telegram and Gazette is feeling slighted. After all, the New York Times sale included that paper, too.
The Telegram's been in Worcester for over 100 years. It's a vital news outlet. It's our only major news outlet. And I just want to let Mr. Henry know how important it is to us in Worcester and central Massachusetts.
Worcester Rep. John Mahoney is one of more than 24 state legislators from central Massachusetts who sent a letter to Henry last week, urging him to pay attention to Worcester, too.
I know he didn't buy the Boston Globe to get it at the Telegram, but just to let him know, think of us.
In addition to his recent visits to the Globe, Henry penned this 2,800-word letter to readers explaining why he bought the Globe. No mention of the Telegram and Gazette. For his part, John Henry is mum. A spokesman declined any formal comment, noting that John Henry has been very busy and was at Major League Baseball meetings in Orlando this week. Still, Mahoney wants the wise businessman to take note of one important fact.
The Telegram does make money, so that's another, it's not like it's a money loser, so that gives me hope.
There's always that.
Well, as somebody remarked to me, he owns the Pawtucket Red Sox, too, but he doesn't go to the games very often, if ever. So I think this is a case of where he's, putting his attention and time in the thing that is most critical to him, which is the Boston Globe. I mean, I'd be kind of surprised if he offloaded this. I mean, why would he? At this point, as Representative Mahoney pointed out, that they're making some money, and I think it's kind of a goodwill on his part to keep it. I don't really think he would offload it.
Well, I don't know. I mean, the Telegram and Gazette is a fairly large and important paper. And John Henry has certainly proved over the years in his ownership of the Red Sox and in the way he made his debut with the Globe that he's very conscious of public relations. So I think that he himself has to be acutely aware that he has said nothing about the Telegram and Gazette. And it leads me to believe that there's something in the works, perhaps a sale to local ownership in central Massachusetts, which would be presumably good for John Henry, but it could also be very good for the Worcester area as well. I mean, frankly, that's kind of what I hope is going on.
I mean, if $70 million was the price for the Globe and the Worcester paper together, the Worcester paper by itself would probably not go for a particularly high number. He wouldn't be selling it for financial reasons. He'd be selling it because he thought there'd be someone else who would be able to take care of it, have local ownership. It's interesting, the newspaper business has really split up a lot in terms of tiers. The New York Times is in a very different business than the Boston Globe is in, and the Boston Globe is increasingly in a very different business than what a paper the size of Worcester or smaller would be. So I think at a certain level it would make sense for him to focus on the Globe, which I think is where his heart is, but we're just going to have to wait and see. It was interesting, after he made the purchase of the Globe, there was lots of talk that he was going to be bringing in other investors, local investors, to take pieces of it. That makes me think that he has an interest in bringing in other people for ownership overall.
No, I tend to agree with Dan. I have that suspicion that his failure even to respond to this little outcry that's come up, if he really did intend to hold on to the Worcester Telegram and Gazette, I think as soon as that first story even started to surface, he would have responded in some way. He would have said, no, my schedule is there, but I'm going to be there on such and such a date. and still the silence is there. I think at this point the silence it confirms something is going on there. It may not be a bad thing that he wants to sell it, but had he gone there right away, I think that might have expressed a little bit too much love, and he wanted to send a signal that keep you. You're going to be the bridesmaid that's left behind here, and we'll see what happens.
Oh, I absolutely agree. It feels to me like he's definitely planning to sell it or offload it or whatever. What I think is interesting is that Josh said, well, he's shown his great interest, as we've seen with the article and everything, in the Globe. But the trend, people, still is hyper-local information, community information. That's what people want, this information. That's what the Worcester Telegram and Gazette is doing for a huge part of Massachusetts. And that part of the state, let's face it, is very different from this part. There's an opportunity there to really practice not two kinds of journalism, but really to have two projects in journalism with very different focuses. And I don't know. I think if he was interested in that, he would have said, but I don't think he is. So
I think if you look at the billionaires who've entered the newspaper business recently, there have been wildly different levels of interest in day-to-day management or really being involved. Jeff Bezos is not really managing the Washington Post in any significant way. Warren Buffett's not getting down with the Omaha paper, even though he owns it now. I think that for someone like John Henry, who has only a limited amount of focus and another pretty important job and other interests as well, I would have to think that the inclination would be it doesn't make sense for him to be focused on Worcester.
And pretty complicated deal if John Henry does sell the Telegram and Gazette, because the Globe and the T&G's business operations are intertwined at every level. So this could take some time for it to play out.
I don't know. I'm going to remain skeptical until it happens. I really think. I mean, he did have the World Series. He was at the Major League Baseball owners and general managers meeting, and it's small time stuff to him.
He's got people. Somebody can handle some of this other stuff.
Chris Mayer was out there. He sent Chris Mayer out, and I realize Chris Mayer may be out the door himself, but he's the publisher of the Globe, and he did go out. We'll see.